Welcome to Philly Fortune Talks with your host, Jake Penny, where the city's brightest minds share the secrets behind their success. Are you ready to be inspired?
Welcome to another episode of Philly Fortunes Talks, where we bring you stories of Philadelphia's most dynamic and impactful figures. Today, we are excited to have a conversation with a true embodiment of Philadelphia's working class spirit, Frank McGovern. Born and raised in Northeast Philadelphia, Frank has always had a blue-collar attitude and passion for real estate. Despite life challenges, he began his real estate career at 26 years old with almost no knowledge, connections, or money. Through relentless trial and error, research, and unwavering determination, Frank has risen to become one of the most active real estate investors in the Philadelphia area. Starting with wholesaling and assigning contract, Frank has expanded his expertise to rehabbing, landlording, and even developing. His reputation as a straight shooter, valuing honesty and integrity over profits, has fueled his rapid growth and success. Frank's dedication to the community is evident in his efforts to raise funds for unfunded Philadelphia public schools. Beyond real estate, Frank is a devoted father and husband of four. Well, a father of four and a husband. Philadelphia sports fanatic and an avid reader. He also recently transformed his own health and fitness, inspiring others to achieve their best shape. Join us as we delve into Frank McGovern's journey, his contributions to Philadelphia's real estate landscape, and his commitment to give back to the community. Let's get started on Philly Fortunes Talks. Frank, how are you? Thank you for coming on today.
That was a great intro, Jake. So hopefully I can live up to it.
Awesome. I mean, I'm super out of breath from that. You know, you got a lot of stuff going on. So if you want to, give us a little brief background if I didn't hit all the T's and I's.
Yeah, I'll just kind of go into how I got started in real estate, and grew up in Northeast Philly. I was, didn't come from money. I was on welfare from birth until 18. So being, on the poorer side, it was just something like money always intrigued me. Like it was something I always wanted. Kind of had got into like a lot of trouble kind of growing up. Had my son when I was 18 years old, and it was kind of a saving grace. Around, when I was probably 17, for whatever reason, I always thought about getting into real estate, into like flipping houses. And I had no idea why. Like I didn't know anyone. Just always thought people were going to need a place to live, and I can make a lot of money doing that. Like that was literally it. Then I had my son when I was 18, so life happened, and I couldn't kind of take that entrepreneur route. Worked in like banking and bill collecting, kind of in my early and mid 20s, and was laid off a couple times. So in 2009, I had gotten laid off from doing business to business bill collecting. And, I was getting max unemployment and severance pay. So I was like, now I can kind of, make that transition into real estate. So I figured I would go get my real estate license and learn real estate and how to flip houses that way. So, I passed the state exam. Proud to say I actually passed it on the first try. And I can remember like it was yesterday. It was like December of 2009. I'm online searching for an investor-friendly real estate broker, and I stumble upon a website called biggerpockets.com, which is like a huge website now, but back then it was a very like tiny like website. And I learned wholesaling. Like I seen wholesaling on that website, and it was like literally like one of them aha moments. I literally said to myself, I'm like, this is literally like legal drug dealing, and you're not going to go to prison. So literally the next day, without really knowing too much of what it was, I ordered 100 bandit signs, and they came the first week of January of 2010. And those of you who are familiar with Philly, like I put 100 bandit signs all up and down Roosevelt Boulevard. And then, like the rest was history. It was just a lot of trial and error, blood, sweat, and tears. It took me like 3 months to get my first deal closed. It took me 18 months to kind of get to a point where I was closing deals consistently. And then once I was closing deals like consistently every month, like then I started slowly kind of building a team. And then, over the course from 2010 to 2020, I did like well over 600 transactions, mainly assignments, but I did, a good amount of fix and flips. I did a few one development project of a few houses, and I acquired a decent amount of rental properties. Just going down that journey, I had, an office with very high overhead, lots of marketing, big team with W-2 employees, as well as virtual assistants overseas. And, in 2020, it just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks that like the path that I was on, with that, was not the path that I wanted to be on, right? My objective was to net 7 figures a year. But I realized in order for me to accomplish that, like I was going to have to do significantly more volume than what I was doing at the time. So if I was going to increase the amount of volume I was going to be doing, I needed to have, way more marketing, which needs more team members, and just a lot more management, which is not what I like doing at all. Like I'm good at sales, marketing, crunching numbers and finding hidden value within like a property or an asset. But it was just like, damn, like I don't want to be doing this shit. So I literally shut down my office, um, fired the majority of my local employees in 2020 and 2021, and really just focused on, doing minimal volume, keeping my overhead low, and leaning on virtual assistants to do the majority of the work. I knew some people nationally that were doing really well with apartment buildings. So I figured, well, hey, like I'm good at finding deals and I can crunch numbers. So let me try to find them apartment buildings. And so I just started, kind of doing the same thing I was doing, with houses, locally in Philly, and started doing that nationally to apartment buildings. So mind you, as I said, I did over 600 transactions and made a ton of money doing it, but I never made $100,000 on a deal when I was doing the residential deals. The highest I ever made was probably like 96 grand. I'd made like wholesaling a piece of land, and I'd made, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, every number under the sun, but never 100. Well, the first small apartment deal, I wholesale in Ohio, I make $120,000.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, and it was just like, that was the same shit that I've been doing with houses for the last 10 plus years, but it was just a larger asset in a different part of the country. So like I was like, I'm kind of on to something here, but still kind of didn't really, go all in with that. And all the while, I started looking into other asset classes, other than like apartment buildings. I started looking into self-storage, mobile home parks, and just from like a lot of research and stuff that I was doing, I kind of fell in love with storage facilities and industrial real estate, kind of as a whole. So about like maybe 6 to 8 months after I closed that apartment deal, I wholesale a $20 million storage facility in San Antonio, Texas, and I made a $300,000 fee. So
Wow.
yeah, it was like, fuck these houses. I'm focusing on larger assets, and that's kind of what I've been focused more so on the last, 18 to 24 months, storage facilities and warehouses nationally, as opposed to doing the houses, the Philadelphia, or any residential,
Mhm.
locally. So I still do market, locally, but I market everywhere in the country. So the deal flow that I do now isn't really in the Philadelphia market as much as for the majority of my career.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome, Frank. So it seems like a lot of people had a big aha moment in 2020. I mean, personally, I had a big aha. I don't know if it was because the world was going ape shit or something. I have no idea. That's a whole nother thing. Um, but I was very transactional, not wholesaling like yourself, but I was fix and flipping. And I was kind of like what you said, your thought process, like, oh man, if I want to make this amount of money, I'm going to have to do X amount more deals. And what if the market shifts and there's not any more deals, and then I'm out of business? Now I can't support my family, the roof over my head, yada yada yada. So I was like, that's when I went full steam into rental properties and had more of a mission and purpose. But I mean, you're doing shit nationwide, um, and with multifamily, self storage, all that stuff.
Yeah,
That's
and
all.
that's kind of what, like, I was so fascinated with the large checks, because of my mindset and infatuation with money, so like while I did like acquire rentals, it wasn't nearly in hindsight like what I should have been. Like I was focused on getting the big checks as opposed to the more important checks, which are the monthly cash flow checks. So like it's similar to you, like that was my mindset that I realized. I was like, damn, like, it's like I've been so transactional. Um, with these larger assets, I'm negotiating equity in the assets as well.
Mm.
So, I'm able to create cash flow from that. And then the bigger picture, like with this, was not to necessarily just be like wholesale larger assets across the country. It was to build relationships with people that can operate the assets
Operators, yeah.
because I know I suck at that and I'm never going to be good at it, right? But if I wholesale them assets and I'm building relationships with them, well, now I can bring them on as operating partners, right? I do some educating and show people how to get, the deals. So like the bigger play with all of this was build the relationships with the operators, bring them on, give them 10% equity in the asset as well as a monthly, management fee, give equity to people that bring me deals, as well as be is doing marketing to create deal flow of my own, as well as a fee to the people that bring the deal. But then, now I can actually focus on raising capital, and that will leave 85% of the asset to get chopped up between myself and the person or people that put up the money. And, in the short term, like I'll have to give up, much more equity today.
Mhm.
And, then I will in, 24 to 36 months from now. But once I establish a track record of being able to find the deals, not risk the money for the most part and have the operational relationships in play, in my opinion, it will be pretty easy for me to raise capital for these deals. And instead of me, like right now getting like 5% equity and like a really big fee, I'll still collect a minimal fee, but I'll get, 20, 25 to 50+% equity in the assets, just depending upon, very different variables.
Right, right, yeah. I mean, I'm actually in Rod Khleif's Warrior Mastermind in the coaching program, so I know what you're going through right now, and I'm slowly like getting into it as well, not as fast as I wanted to, um, just because if the wheel ain't broke, don't fix it right now. I don't want to get too much shiny object syndrome, but that's great because you know it is much easier managing bigger buildings. There's more legacy wealth involved, bigger money. It's get more scalable. And honestly, your dollar goes so much further in other markets instead of the greater Philadelphia metro area. It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. And to me, it's like, I don't know, like to each their own, right? But it's like, I would rather do less deals than more, right? And it's like, at
Mhm.
the end of the day, you have to do significantly more transactions like with houses than you would do with any larger asset to create like the same type of cash flow. It's like you could literally, buy an asset or two. So for example, like about I guess it's been like 12 months ago, but I wholesaled like a grand slam deal, like huge asset, totally undervalued. Um, and because it was and I got it on, I negotiated owner finance terms
Oh wow.
because it was such a great deal. Like I was able to negotiate 15% equity in that asset. Well, that one asset, 15% equity in that one asset within the next 6 to 12 months will be bringing in at least 4K a month. And, that will probably go up to like 6K or more within the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And all I did was find the deal. Like I'm not signing on loan docs. I don't manage the asset. I didn't raise any capital. All I did was find and negotiate an amazing deal.
Wow. Four grand a month off of one asset that you don't even have to do. You all you have to do is find it. That's what does that average out to? Like 10 properties in the Philadelphia market and managing and everything as well and
If
going through
not more, because
it's done.
depending upon the price point, like, you're going to net anywhere from like 1 to 300, 400 bucks a month, unless you're probably
Yeah.
maybe like a higher price point. And
Wow.
300 or 400 hours a month to net on a property is like, a good amount.
Good amount right now for interest rates. Hell yeah. That is a good
Yeah,
amount.
like it's realistically, like if you were netting 100, that's 40 properties. 200, that would be 20 properties.
Yeah. Wow. So everybody hits a speed bump every now and then. Can you share a time? And it sounds like you might have went through a speed bump in 2020 when you started,
Uh,
moving your business over and everything. So what was that like? What leadership did you have to do and everything like that to totally change around your whole business and probably life too at the time?
So it was not that it was me taking a step back, right? Because like these deals take a lot longer to close. Like I wasn't like focused on the marketing capacity that I used to market. But I literally just trained up my virtual assistants like into this space. And there was a learning curve with some of the aspects, but I would say 70% of what I do now is what I did with houses for 10 plus years. So like it
Mm.
wasn't like that significant of a difference. But I'll say this, like in terms of like a speed bump, and it's funny, I kind of posted about this like recently, but I hired, so like from 2010 to 2017, like I was mainly just wholesaling and I was doing really well. Like I was literally like increasing revenue for the first few years by like 100+%, and then like from like 50%, like where I'm saying like it was like 100, then like two something, then like four something, then like seven, eight, nine. Like I was going up and up and up, and good profit margins as well. Well, I didn't want to be a wholesaler. Like that was not why I got into real estate. Like wholesaling was like the redheaded stepchild of like real estate investing. That's how I looked at it. Right. So like I wanted to be like this, big ass developer. I'd say like I want to take over the city of Philly like John Street, and it was like going through that process like made me realize it's like no, like you just don't know what you don't know. So like I hire a mentor in 2017, pay him 25 grand for like a year, and this dude still is a mentor of mine to this day. But he's like, Frank, he's like, you don't realize how close you are to like really being able to step away from that business, and then go focus on doing other stuff. But until you do that, if you start to do other stuff, this is going to falter. So do not start doing the other stuff, because what you're doing now and what you're saying you want to do are two different things.
Yeah.
And although I paid him 25 grand because he knew better, nah, I knew better. So he told me, like, I was literally, I can remember I was under contract for a development project, first development project. And he was like, walk away, you'll lose the 2 grand, but he's like, don't do it. My pride and my ego would not allow me to walk away at that point. The
Mm.
lender on the project, I can remember walking. It was a development project I did in Fishtown. We were like a week before closing. The lender was like, Frank, he's like, you're approved for the loan. We're going to lend you the money, but don't take the money. Like this isn't going to turn out the lender said this to me.
Wow.
He said very big lender to this day, like in the city of Philadelphia. But again, my pride and my ego would not allow me to kind of like listen to people that knew much better than me. So in the end, I ended up on that project. I ended up losing what 120 to $150,000, and then going through that for the first couple of years, that's when I kind of realized, well, hey, like they were right. What I'm doing now and what I was doing is not the same thing. On another project I got involved in, I lost like about 120 grand. So like I did a good amount of projects and they were big losses on two of them, but I ended up losing like 250-ish grand in like an 18-month period, and if I trace it back to why, and it was because I did not listen to people that knew much better than me, right?
Yeah.
Like I swore that I knew better. Like even though like I really knew deep down, like they knew better than me, but my pride and my ego would not allow me to admit that.
I can
So,
totally
so,
attest to
so,
that.
so
Shiny syndrome.
yeah, so instead of me, like learning from their mistakes, like I had to learn the real hard way by, taking that big ASL.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard of the Bitcoin mining company in Philadelphia, that whole scheme. That was one of my learning experience. I think I lost like $150,000 on that, But hey, you live and you learn. You have these mentors. They tell you don't go after that shiny object shit. Stay in your lane. We don't listen, and it bites us in the ass. And then we listen going
Yeah.
forward from there. And I think everybody for the most part has to go through their own learning experience to fully understand that, what the path that they're on is the one they should stay on.
I can remember, and again, like I wasn't, rehabbing or is more, I hadn't rehabbed that much up until that point, but I was talking to, I can remember having a conversation who, at that time and for many years, he was like the biggest single family residential developer in the city of Philadelphia.
Oh
And,
wow.
I had a great relationship with him. I wholesaled him a ton of, houses. And I can remember saying to him, I'm like, Vince, like, how the fuck can
Vince,
people,
yeah.
I'm like, how could people lose money? He's like, Frank, he said, everyone, if you've been doing it enough and you've been in the game long enough, everyone loses money. If
Yep.
someone tells you they didn't lose money, they're lying about it or they're not really doing the type of business that they actually are saying they're doing. And sure enough, like 6 or 12 months later, I take these out. I was like, oh, that's,
Oh man.
Vince knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny that you said that. I remember back in 2016, he was like 15, 16. He was like the biggest builder there was.
And it's funny because like I sold him, I wholesaled him a piece of land in 2012, I want to say.
Okay.
First piece of land I wholesaled. And like I remember I sent out like I was building my buyers list and I sent out like letters and he responded. And at the time he was doing like 8 or 10 projects in a year. And
Wow.
yeah, yep. And he was like, "Oh, like, if you get any land," I'm like, "Well, what the fuck are you gonna do with the land?" You know what I mean? Like it literally did not even like it wasn't even like because like if back in now this is back in 2010, the Philadelphia real estate market. I'm talking about 2010, 2011, 2012, fucking horrible. Like
Yeah.
like now the skyline is constantly changing since like 2013, 14, 15 and on where there's crazy development. But like for the first 2, 3 years that I was in business, like there was no like real development like going on. So like wholesaling vacant land for somebody to build on like wasn't even like crossed my mind. But like oddly enough, I started doing business with Vince and like, I did a really good amount of business with him. And because of him and like really learning how to value land and construction for like a good 5 year stretch, land was probably like 50% of the deal flow. And it was like I started wholesaling land before like I'd like to think anybody else was wholesaling land. Like it was for like a good few years, I would not even see anybody like putting out like vacant land to market. And in reality, I was just finding land for Vince. And then like as I built more and more relationships, just finding it for them.
That's incredible. Because I always, when I, like 2016 is when I actually got started in real estate. And I don't know how I I never actually met Vince, but I started admiring like what he was doing in the Philadelphia market, the awesome builds he was doing. And I'm like, how the hell is this guy doing this shit, with these nice ass new construction houses? But he was buying land and waiting for that time long before that. And
Yeah, like
obviously,
there's neighborhoods that like he's personally responsible for like changing the values in them. Like I can remember, like I don't know the name of the section, but I can like picture it. Like I can remember him because I would go like driving for dollars like for him. And it was the area that's like right off of like second, third in Oregon.
mhm,
In South Philly, but like there was no new construction in that area. And he's like, like I know that this area is going to change. So like I can remember like I was getting him like land dirt cheap building. He started selling them for like I think they were first selling for like $300,000 for
yeah,
like a reconstructed house. Now that same area, because of him starting the new construction in that area, are probably like mid fours, if not 500 grand.
wow. Yeah, I know people that bought his houses, sold them the next year, and made like six figures on them just
Yeah.
because of what he was doing and other people doing it too. It's just like forced appreciation out the wazoo. And I was like, holy fuck. And I got shiny object syndrome. Thank God I didn't try to do it because I would have fell flat on my ass trying to do it. But it was really cool. It was definitely inspiring, and that's really cool to hear that you were behind it as well.
Well, I would say a very small piece of it, but no, it was Vince was always like good money, good people, and it was crazy just to see the growth that he had from going to, again, when we first met, he was literally doing less than 10 deals a year to, like, I think when he kind of got out of the Philadelphia market, he was doing hundreds of deals.
Yeah. Wow. So being that you love big checks, I mean, I love big checks. I think everybody likes big checks. How do you approach like financial planning to, ensure stability or, tax mitigations when getting those big checks?
Yeah, that's what with the equity, like in the assets, is getting it's about, getting the equity. And then it's also like why I want to focus more on like acquiring the assets and not just like wholesaling them, right? Because I don't necessarily have to, if I'm getting a majority of the equity, it's not important to collect a big fee up front because I can get that fee tax free when I
Mhm.
refinance it in 12 to 24 months. So to kind of give you an example, the one I was saying, like where I'll get like 4 or 5 grand a month, when we refi that, like we're gonna refi it soon and not really take any capital out, like put more into, building it out to increase it. But when we refinance it like a second time in probably the next 2 to 3 years, like we'll be able to pull out over 7 figures tax free.
Oh shit. Yeah. That's a couple more zeros than I pull out on each deal.
Yeah. So like also like so like again, like the bigger plan with this is like to not be as transactional and to earn
Mhm.
the income. Like I can structure it in a way where, I'll still kind of get like a small fee, but because I'm getting the equity, the cash flow, the depreciation, and I'll be able to, once we refinance the property, get the big checks that way. And that's
Got
tax.
it.
And now I
So
can,
you're strategizing, it sounds like, to kind of build majority of your fee into the deal, get enough cash up front, but build the majority into it to where it comes out tax free through equity, correct?
exactly, exactly. So it's like no different than you do, like Burr, like this is just
Yeah.
on steroids. Just
Yeah, with
once,
like five, six more zeros at the
yeah.
end.
And it's funny
That's
because like
awesome.
banks and institutions would rather lend on the larger assets, more so than like a smaller one. They'd rather lend, 1 to 5 million or $10 million on like, one or two larger assets than, $100,000, $200,000 on a house.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's much easier to get capped out on exposure on residential. I mean, I've gotten I mean, the banks that I've used, their caps are $5 million. So
Yeah.
I've gotten capped out on multiple banks to where I have to bring in credit partners now, sign an agreement on the back end just so that they can be the new guarantor so I can keep everything flowing. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, you have to go through all this, really intense underwriting once you hit that 5 million cap. And then it's like, for us, it's easy. The less paperwork, the less financials. We're real estate investors. We make a lot of money, but we show that we make none. Um, so it's like the more streamlined it is, the better. So, I've gone through that hurdle so far, and it's not fun. So I'm hoping to be in the big boy club in the next year or so, like you.
Funny because like I remember somebody told me that it's just like many years ago, and at the time he said it, I didn't get it, but like that he said to me that you first got to figure out how to make the money,
Hmm.
and then you got to figure out how to keep the money.
Yep.
These are very very two very different skill sets.
Yeah.
Making money is like one skill set, and then keeping it and not like paying it all in taxes and making it grow is a different one.
Yeah, it's about what you keep because you can be someone that earns multiple six figures, but you're just as wealthy as the guy making 50 because he knows how to keep it or he knows how to budget and you're not keeping it and you're spending it. So it's like
Yeah,
all
and
that
like
works for nothing if you don't know how to keep it.
yeah, like when I didn't own any assets and I just had like less knowledge about taxes, I was paying 50% like as my, my marginal tax rate for years. And
Yeah.
I'm talking about when I was making, 6 figures or multiple 6 figures, like I was paying that, and it was, until I educated myself and like learn like, well, I need to get an S corp set up and structure it so it's funneled from LLC to the management company that is an S,
Yup.
you know it saves you literally, takes your marginal tax rate down by, 15+%.
Yeah, I just had to go through all that, being that, we're still doing a bunch of fix and flips. We have almost 100 rental properties. We'll be over 150, hopefully my goal is 200 by the end of the year. But it's like I graduated my old accountant, and I'm starting to work with this new accountant. And boy, the more money you make, the more it costs to keep it too. It was like $30,000. To have the structure in place, all the trusts and the multiple jurisdiction, holding companies, Wyoming, Nevada, all this shit, and then the ongoing tax, like accounting side of it too. I was like, damn. And my buddy told me, he was like, I told him that I asked him because he's really successful, and I was like, dude, I got a quote for XYZ. He was like, man, I pay $50,000 a year just for the bookkeeping side of it. He was like, dude, that's great. And I'm like, fuck, really? I thought this was like too expensive. I thought I was going to get someone cheaper.
Once you start making it, everything costs more.
Oh yeah, definitely. So what's on the horizon for you? What's big goals in multifamily or self-storage over the next year look like for you?
I really am just focusing more on making that transition from wholesale to acquisition. In the next 2 to 3 years, like my goal is to get to $100,000 a month in net cash flow from the larger assets. And just aside from like, business stuff, I've really gotten involved with, just fitness and nutrition, and like, I'll be 41 in a couple weeks, and I'm literally in better shape at 41 than I was at 21. So that's something I got really into and started doing some like coaching with that as well. But yeah, just to me, just constant like personal improvement, and just focusing on getting better every day. Like I know like people say that like all the time, but it's like that's really what life is about for me. Like I've realized throughout my career, when I feel like I've become stagnant and I'm not like growing, and I don't even just mean from like a financial perspective, like I mean just from, mind, body, spirit, like I just don't tend to feel good about myself.
Mm-hmm.
But the more that I'm growing, physically, spiritually, mentally, um, you know, growth, I believe that's what like life is about, and too often I thought it was just about like growing financially and in business. Um, but they all go like hand in hand. It's like the more that I have put into, getting, focused and clear in mind, body, and spirit, it helps in all other areas of my life.
Yeah, my health went to shit. I was a big fitness guy, um, but my health went to shit for a couple of years because I was so focused on financial wealth, and I totally lost myself. I got fat, and just total felt like a piece of shit all the time. And then I started, learning about all sectors of life, and it's like the five pillars of wealth. There's financial wealth, health wealth, happiness, relationship, contribution, spirituality. And like, yeah, if you can excel in financial wealth, but all this other shit, if you don't focus on it, it's going to bring you down. It's no fun to be fat, busted and disgusted and lonely. If you have all the money, what point is it? So it
Yeah.
was like I had to get back on track and whatnot. And I'm totally with you. Like if I don't work out or read or journal or whatever, like I feel like shit. It has to be all integrated, level, and balanced.
Yeah, and to me, like, it's not even like I got back in shape, but it wasn't until I started being consistent, like, in the gym, that there's a direct correlation between, your how you are physically, and how you are in mind and spirit. It's like, to me, it's very apparent, people can see the physical change in how I look from, 10, 12 months ago compared to now. But there was an equal, if not greater, change that has happened like internally. And to me, it's just like when you get really dialed in with like the gym and stuff, it just really kind of helps in all areas of your life. And it's a matter of like, it's not like I like people people say to me now, like, oh, that's good that you like going to the gym. Like that's you must be lucky that you feel like going to the gym all the time. Like, I don't fucking I go to the
No.
gym like 5 or 6 days a week. at least half of the week. Like my
Yeah.
bitch starts talking and like just like hit the snooze button and
Yo.
like no, you literally build like confidence and discipline by doing hard shit, like which going to the gym every day and pushing yourself is like not easy, but you do that like consistently and you just build a level of confidence and discipline and you know self-respect that you otherwise like you just don't get.
Yeah, you beat your inner thoughts. You beat your inner self that always tells you no, you don't have to, or you shouldn't today. And then you start to respect yourself more because people that let themselves down all the time by saying, "Oh, tomorrow I'll do it. Tomorrow I'll do it.
Yeah,
Tomorrow." You eventually stop respecting yourself, and then you may feel like shit. And then once you tell that inner voice, "No, hell no, I'm not listening to you. I'm going to do it, even if I don't want to." Then you get done. You're like, "Man, that felt fucking awesome. Let's do it again. Well, I'll feel 10%, 1% better tomorrow when I do it." So that's
exactly.
awesome. That you see that, and I think a lot more people would feel much better if they saw it that way too.
Yeah, and trust me, like shit, when I was like 17, I was in a rehab, 16 or 17, and I was like diagnosed with like bipolar disorder. Like I've had drug and alcohol problems like the majority of my life, have been around people that have had struggled a lot mentally. And in my personal opinion, like if you dropped a voice and you started eating better and working out, 95 to 99% of people's mental health problems in the United States of America would disappear.
Yep. Yep. But we'll prescribe everything to make, to put a lipstick
Exactly.
on a pig and make, insurance companies money and tell everybody they have problems with their problems are super easy to fix. Trust me. They diagnosed me with depression, anxiety. They said I had a lesion on my brain. I don't even know how the fuck that's possible. Like nobody went inside my head and cut me, you know? And they're like, "Oh, it's due to depression or anxiety." I'm like, "Nah, ADHD, whatever." I was like, "I don't believe in medicine like that stuff." I was like, "I'm gonna go out and do it on my own." And yeah, it wasn't easy,
Yeah,
but I
it's
did.
work. It's consistent work. Just like you'd have to take that medicine every day, like the gym or like journaling or fucking meditation or affirmations. Like I got a morning routine. Like that's my medicine every morning.
Yep.
Like I'm not like a naturally positive person. Like my mind can go pretty dark places just like fucking as it wanders.
Oh
So
yeah.
I know that about myself. So what do I do every fucking single morning? I do stuff that counteracts that stuff to get my mindset and my brain, in a positive, like, or at the very least a neutral state. And, it's changed my life significant.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. So for anybody that's like trying to maybe get involved with what you're doing, maybe they want to help find deals or learn from you, how can they get connected with you?
You can hit me up on Facebook, just Frank McGovern on Facebook. Instagram, it's fuck it, but it's PHUCKIT, Frank.
Love it.
And that's kind of like a brand that I actually created because it's like obviously a play on words because of Philly, but like too often in life I would get the fuck it's like with bad shit. Like, oh, like my conscience is telling me, like, oh, you ain't supposed to be doing this. And I'd be like, ah, fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway. So now this is a different type of fuck it, a blessing, not a curse. Like I want to show people if they could, change their mind, they could change their life. So like that's kind of what that's about. But yeah, fuck it, Frank on Instagram or Frank McGovern on Facebook.
Awesome, Frank. Well, it was a pleasure having you today on Philly Fortune Talks, and look forward to connecting soon.
Greatly appreciate you having me, and hopefully the audience got some value out of this.
Awesome. Thank you, Frank.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in to Philly Fortune Talks with Jake Penny. Inspired to share your success story? Visit phillyfortunetalks.com/guest and let's inspire together.